Unfortunately, the affairs of state are such that they intrude at times that are not always convenient for us. And so we received word literally within the last 72 hours that after working pretty hard to get everything arranged, that the Prime Minister is not going to be able to attend. However, his purpose in coming was to deliver a tribute to Maurice Bishop. And that was one of the reasons why we were so extraordinarily excited about him coming. Because those of you who are veterans, back in the day, organizers and revolutionaries know just how important the Grenada Revolution was in that period. And there's some debate between Reverend Herbert Daughtry and Conrad Worrell, and those of us in the National Black Independent Political Party down here, the largest delegation, we say they were, but it was all good. Because Grenada was this bright beacon of progressive hope. I was one of the founders of African Liberation Day. I remember the New Deal movement on May 25th, 1972, turned out hundreds of people under the beautiful leader in Grenada. And I will never forget being there in Grenada on the cases. At one time, Mercedes walked up there, about 100 people, we went in there 100 strong, on the radio, saying the National Black Independent Party. It was such a, Maurice Bishop was such a warm, just wonderful. And of course, unfortunately, given the forces that Prime Minister Patterson talked about today and those that have been outlined, he was murdered. And our hearts are dead. And he was murdered because there was such a fear of Grenada. It says that Grenada was going to be heard from James Early and Commissioner and Ambassador Commission talking about Cuba. They feared that this small island, 110,000, was going to become English-speaking Cuba of the Caribbean. One of my great friends, and some of these I know, Don was with me. And I remember Ron Walters calls me the fact that Maurice Bishop had been killed. And we were living and I remember saying something because somebody else was about this was just that was about maybe it's not. It would take 30 years for us to be able to recover from the sins. Yeah. That's the truth. Trust those that will rise. And so we had to receive Jesus and this young they upon lynching. We been elected. And he was elected, not only elected, but he came saying he was like one of the seeds born. Came the next year, but the whole week will be dedicated to the mission. And so many of you know, may not know that you should. But in this time, controlling our this hall meeting is one of the great revolutionaries of Europe. It was the Restoration Mission. And God for network of the states in the world to come and play in the street was all made of it was hard. And so you know that it's really critical. So blessing going out, Christian, and others, but house of the Lord church, and he said, well, we don't know how long it'll be with us. But he said, my next. So we was out high. So we have to actually a lot of vision. And that would be probably short statement. As
If you're just joining us, viewers and listeners, we have this on our live stream, and we are awaiting the start of this town hall. Actually, got on the way, but this town hall this evening will be dedicated to the honor and memory of the late Prime Minister of Grenada, Maurice Bishop, State of the Black World Conference 2023, which is happening here in Baltimore, Maryland. And of course, we're just waiting on the technicians to cue up the tribute video, one of which will be in honor of Maurice Bishop, followed by a virtual address that will be delivered by the current Prime Minister of Grenada, Mr. Deacon Mitchell. So he was scheduled to be here in person, but we believe that cancellation occurred at the very last minute, so he's not going to be here this evening at this event. But certainly we are now taking that tribute video to Maurice Bishop.
brilliant sister. She's now, I understand, chairperson of the Senate. And she was part of the U.S. Grenada Friendship Society. And in those days, it was Barbara Lee and her sidekick, whose name I'm blanking on, Carlotta Scott. Are we ready? Okay. Good. Save me.
To all millennials and especially esteemed colleagues. It is indeed an honor to join you today, albeit virtually. I bring you spice-filled greetings and warmth on behalf of the government and people of Grenada. But around that, thanks to you and your team for inviting Grenada to be in this house tonight and share in so proud and dynamic gathering of global Black leaders, national elected officials, organizers, media workers, women, and most of all, young persons. I extend a special welcome to all millennials and especially Generation Z participants in this year's conference. We need your passion and fearlessness as we continue this journey towards peace, justice, and prosperity. Today, I have been granted the immense honor to lead a tribute to a national Grenadian hero, world-renowned revolutionary and Pan-African icon, Maurice Bishop, who embodied the potential and power of young people to drive the change we wish to see in the world. Becoming Maurice Bishop, the Pan-African icon. Maurice Bishop was born on May 29, 1944, in Aruba, an island in the Dutch Caribbean, to Grenadian parents who, like many Grenadians at the time, sought to improve their financial position by working in the oil refinery. Maurice moved to Grenada with his parents in 1950 at the age of 6, attending primary and secondary school on the island amid a time of great agitation and a social justice movement for improved wages and conditions on the plantations, which spilled over across the wider society. Black skins, black faces, and most women were excluded from premier institutions and from top positions in banks and front offices, the governor's office and parliament, and even from the island's tennis courts. These social agitations of the 1950s dislodged some racial barriers, won adult suffrage, and raised consciousness that better was attainable with a fact. The Bishop family valued education and political activism, traits that were passed on to a young Maurice. He read widely with his revolutionary writers and analysts such as Frantz Fanon, Walter Rodney, and C.L.R. James. Sharp. In 1963, Maurice moved to London to study law and soon became involved in left-wing political activism. During this period, he studied the works of Marx, Lenin, and Stalin, and traveled to
Folks, if you're just joining us, we are live streaming this special global town hall in which Prime Minister Maurice Bishop is being honored. And they're having
So
some
there
technical
is
issues with the video,
collage.
but the video was submitted by the Prime Minister of Grenada, who is headlining, or actually was supposed to be here to receive the award on behalf of the Prime Minister, of the former Prime Minister Maurice Bishop.
In any event, on the first anniversary of the revolution, had the occasion to accompany a delegation of the U.S. Grenada Friendship Society, and had the privilege
And a few months later, his father, Rupert Bishop, was shot and killed as he protected demonstrating school children from state terror. Under Maurice's leadership, the NGM gained significant support among Grenadians who were tired of poverty, inequality, and political oppression. In 1979, the NGM would successfully lead a peaceful coup against the ruling government, and Maurice became the Prime Minister of Grenada. Once at the helm of governance, he quickly set about implementing a program of social and economic reform, including nationalizing key industries and implementing policies to improve education, healthcare, and housing for all Grenadians. Maurice's vision for a just and equitable society, where citizens were free to achieve their full potential without fear, spoke to ideals that resonated with Grenadians, but also spoke to all peoples that were struggling against oppression worldwide. He believed that the fight for liberation in the Caribbean was part of a larger struggle for African liberation across the globe. Maurice Bishop, a people's leader who hammered at the pathetic edifice of justice on a global scale, people of color, and especially Black people, have experienced the brutality of injustice so uniquely, so profoundly, and so painfully that the journey to restore humanity continues to be a deep and collective undertaking. As a predominantly Black nation, we in Grenada needed the giant that Maurice Bishop was, the voice that he found buried within him, the ideals he could so sincerely champion, the revolutionary team that he so ably led, and the global solidarity that poured out, to hammer down deeply and powerfully at the pathetic edifice of injustice, poverty, and other violations of people's sovereignty that history had left us in 1979, only 5 years independent from Britain. He took up that challenge and remained eternally grateful. The truth is that Maurice Bishop and the Grenada Revolution, which he led, are both parts and parcels of the long continuum of history to move away from injustice, beyond the brutality of oppression, and be bearers of torches that light our ways to full freedom. Maurice's persona and message and the struggle he led in Grenada resonated with so many for that reason. He spoke to a primal yearning to reclaim our common humanity of dignity and respect. Bishop and the Grenada Revolution, 1979 to 1983. The Grenada Revolution took up the whole of society causes. It's freedom we make it. People's power for a participatory democracy inspired popular slogans that said it all and captured it all. The revolution set out to uproot injustices against the people with free education and decent public health care, with increases in wages, wage equity, and the social wage, with rapid job creation and agro-industrial development. The critical input was incessant support and inclusion, as well as appeals to ordinary people, rural Grenadians and workers of all stripes, urging them to take control of their lives and communities and find empowerment for transformation in themselves and their collective actions. Yes, the Grenada Revolution of 1979 to 1983 blundered, but it was Grenada's authentic, sovereign attempt at finding its way out of a history of colonialism and slavery and into the light of a true post-emancipation, post-colonial freedom. Many of you in the room here tonight extended solidarity to Grenada's revolution through visits and seeing and assessing the country's progress for yourselves. You shared information and called for solidarity for us from others. On behalf of all Grenadians then and now, I say thank you for the love and respect, the political support and solidarity that African Americans, Caribbean Americans, and Grenadian Americans gave to Brother Bish and our beloved Grenada. The successes achieved belong to you as well. Bishop, an inspiration for NDC's transformation, an eternal champion for humanity. Colleagues, since its founding in 1990, my party, the National Democratic Congress, has joined the honorable struggle for a better Grenada. On June 23, 2022, we were elected to office for the third time by the people of Grenada, and we have since embarked on a rigorous program of transformation. I genuinely believe that there is no better tribute we can pay to someone that inspires us than to emulate them. But if Maurice was alive, he would be proud of us and maybe even join us. We share the vision he so well articulated when he told the people of Grenada, and I quote, "This revolution is for work, for food, for decent housing and health services, and for a bright future for our children and great-grandchildren," unquote. 40 years after the demise of the Grenada Revolution, our transformation agenda seeks to bring this vision to fruition. Our campaign paid tribute to Maurice Bishop and his fallen comrades, parish by parish. And now that we govern, our social and people-centered programs, including our frequent town hall meetings to dialogue with citizens, is our way of paying tribute to the democratic innovation of making space for people at the center of our process, the hallmark that the revolution left Grenadian democracy. Maurice Bishop was and remains a glorious inspiration to all of us. His people, peoples of African descent, and humanity on a whole. What we are doing in Grenada today owes so much to his vision, his organization, his team, and the people of Grenada. Bishop, a champion for humanity. 44 years have passed, yet the timelessness of Bishop's leadership remains. The democratic process he articulated in word and deed for us at home, for the Black world, and for all humanity, and his pleas to the international community are all alive and relevant. In his maiden address to the United Nations in September 1979, stressing the challenges posed by colonialism, neocolonialism, and imperialism, Bishop called for a new international order, one in which the just needs and aspirations of small states, such as Grenada, could be met. Today, that call is still relevant because we live and struggle in a world of complex multipolarity, with systemic injustice its leading feature. This world is bedeviled with multiple crises, from climate change to global health emergencies, to debt unsustainability, the threat of nuclear war, and the continuing exploitation of the developing countries. Who the leading power brokers are and how many there are may have changed, but the fundamental undemocratic nature of the international relations has not improved. So, the work continues. Good, hopeful work, because there is also a world shining with points of promise for bending the arc of all history towards justice and toward freedom. Reparations for the crime and sin of slavery is beginning to be heard in European capitals and amongst European families. The proposal for climate justice via the Bridgestone Initiative is getting a hearing. Black people are holding power in diasporas worldwide, and Generation Z are stepping into economic spaces with enthusiasm. We can learn from Grenada's 20th century hero par excellence, Maurice Bishop, that leading a small island, leading a predominantly Black people, is a continuous labor of love, hope, and solidarity. As our national hero, we again call for the body of Maurice Bishop and that of the many fallen comrades killed with him to be returned to their families. Maurice Bishop's personal qualities, his uncommon vision, and his unwavering leadership made him serve people and nation, serve the Caribbean region, and Black people everywhere. Indeed, he led with conscience to see the need to right the wrongs of history. He led with conviction to lead our nation to act, clarity to see and lift our people as the real agents and subjects of change, candor to call people to transform themselves, and courage to speak truth to power, at home and abroad. As we approach the end of the decade for people of African descent, 2015 to 2025, let us continue to work together to achieve its goals of recognition, justice, and development, to end colonialism and racism, and end oppression and injustices. Maurice will no longer be with us, but his vision and legacy burn fervently in the memories and actions of those of us here present, and will continue to live after we are gone. In the great continuum of history, Maurice Bishop played his part before he died at age 39. Now, so must we. Thank you, Maurice. Your spirit lives on. Forward ever, backward never. Thank you very much.
So is there, that's it? Okay, all right, I just want to be sure. All right. So one of the things that we're proposing is, I think it is next October, is it Commandant Day? We are proposing to organize a return, because there's going to be a full week of commemoration on behalf of Maurice Bishop, and we would like to organize a delegation to be a part of that celebration. Again, for whatever. For whatever. All right, moving on. It's tough when you have to deliver two of these. The President Adu will also not be with us this evening. However, he prepared a keynote statement that has been delivered, but it's not ready for presentation. It has to be further reviewed. So we will play that speech, and some will rearrange the schedule to make sure that it is. So perhaps tomorrow night, in that town hall meeting, we will make that presentation. But rest assured that out of the relationship that we forged in the global summit, the Accra Summit, we built a relationship. And out of that relationship, we recognize President Adu Nana, as he is called, as a global leader, challenging heads of state in particular to step forward, particularly in Africa, to lead and be engaged in this struggle. It was for that reason that we invited him, and he was actually the first to confirm that he would be in attendance. But as I said before, unfortunately, there are matters of state. In fact, when I talked to Congressman Meeks yesterday, he said he was on the way to Ghana as a follow-up to the visit for Vice President Kamala Harris. He said, I hope that's not the reason. I said, well, all we received was a conflict in schedule, which prevented him from coming. And obviously, we were very, very, very excited about that. However, we will play his presentation once it has been again reviewed and ready for presentation. So again, our apologies for that inconvenience and that disappointment, and none more so, believe me, than we who organized this conference. Francia Marquez was invited. We did not receive a confirmation for her. We kept holding out and hoping, but we are honored to have with us Helma, who was introduced earlier today, who is the Vice President's executive assistant. And once I go to my room and change her flight once again, we're expecting one of the first senator, and the region escapes me and whatever, but she is the first Afro-descendant from this region to be in the Senate, and she is coming to participate in the conference and to be the featured guest at the breakfast on this coming Friday morning, assuming that we can. There was a visa issue, and when the ticket says the 24th, and they're only going to let us stay till the 23rd, so I have to go back and change the ticket all over again. So again, apologies for that, but we do anticipate her being here with us. Now we'd like to get to the heart of our discussion in terms of the state of the global reparations movement, the way forward. And I think, as was discussed earlier today, the way forward for the state is great. I mean, Queen Mother Moore and John Conyers are looking down and smiling because of the enormous progress that has been made. But before we call our full panel up, and we have an incredible panel to address this topic, we'd like to invite for framing remarks the president, or we call him vice chancellor. I always translated it to president so people will understand that he's not the second in command, he is in command of the University of the West Indies. And as I described this great leader, a generation of leader, Baba Akili and I had a conversation at one point. He said that people respond to the heart and the head. Sometimes we forget that because a lot of intellectuals only want to go to the head. You know, it's very rigid and linear. But this brother has the gift for narrative, for telling the story that touches you right here. But he also backs it up with impeccable scholarship. He is one of the most brilliant scholars of our era. So by the time he gets finished, it's not like, like some, like, not that I'm saying this is like soft spoken, just like carrying us through the story. By the time you get finished, we're ready to go out and storm, whatever. He is, I think, the leading public intellectual scholar activist in this movement. It is he who was really the visionary and the architect who inspired and encouraged the leaders of the Caribbean to take the courageous decisions they did that Ambassador Commission referred to in 2013. And by the way, one of the things that you'll note from Ambassador Commission's presentation is the way in which these scholar activists are encouraging and building the kinds of relationships that is encouraging leaders to take bold and audacious action. But I think we all look up to this great giant. And I don't say that in any, like gender-reflecting way. He's just be a bad brother. Would you please welcome Professor Hillary?
What a tremendous honor it is to be with you this evening and to participate in this panel discussion, even though I know I have just 5 minutes to frame the narrative. We have a competition going on in the Caribbean. Who is going to break Fidel Castro's record for an unscripted 4 hours and 35 minute speech? And we've all been practicing because we don't want that record to fall into the base. But I promise you, not this evening. My thesis this evening, given the instructions by Comrade Ron, is this. The reparations movement exists. We no longer have a series of ad hoc moments scattered across the globe, not connected to each other, not talking to each other, helter-skelter and ad hoc. All of those activities have now been connected onto a network of consciousness and action. So now we have a movement. And this is the 7th wave in the evolution of this movement. We've been studying this from the very first African peoples who arrived in this world, in this new world, and said, we're not taking the slavery monarchy, we want justice. From that moment, the movement started. And we looked at it through the period of enslavement. We looked at it during the period of emancipation. We looked at it 100 years after emancipation. We looked at it in the civil rights, human rights movement of the 20th century. We have been studying the evolution of this call for reparations. 300 years, 400 years. And now we are here, consolidated as a movement. And this 7th wave, this 7th iteration is not going to go away, leaving another moment for another generation. This is it. This is it. This is it. This is it. We are connected. We are interconnected. I heard this morning Brother Ron was speaking about the Afro-descendant people in Central America, Colombia, all the way down to Bahia, Brazil, and all of that is now networked and connected, and it's connected to us. So when we speak here in Baltimore, our voice is resonating all through Central America, Latin America, and through the islands. That's what we are doing now. The islands are connected. Yes, it took us 50 years in the civil society movement in the islands to persuade our governments to come on board. The people were already there. The Rastafari had been there all along. The people were there, the trade unions, the labor movements, academia, but the governments were standing back. They were not sure. What is this reparations? Finally, with the rise of public consciousness and the hard work in the grassroots, the governments came on board. That was a wonderful and significant moment. People and the governments are now speaking with the same voice. Academia is now fully on board across the world. All over the world. Universities all over the world are now jumping up and saying, yes, we drank from the well of slavery. Yes, we built our faculties with slavery cash. Yes, our professors were slave owners. Yes, our students who go into classes and the enslaved assistants were sitting outside the class to carry their books back to the dormitory. All of that is now coming to the fore, and academia is now standing up. Why are they standing up? Because we call them out. We have said to them, no university can be excellent unless it is ethical. You cannot be excellent unless you are ethical. And we said it to all of them, Oxford, Cambridge, MIT, all of them around the world. We told them you have to be accountable for what you did to our people. And one by one, they are standing up, they are researching their own history, and they're finding what we knew was always there. What we knew was always there. They could not have risen to the standard and the status without the capital derived from the enslavement program. And we know that. And so the universities are now speaking out. We expect that. Now, we recognize that many of those families that were consolidating their futures with the enslavement of other people, many of those families are now coming to the table of accountability to say, yes, we were involved in crimes against humanity, and we are going to atone for that. I see in the audience here, Laura Trevelyan, who visited with us in Grenada a month ago. Her family, the Trevelyan family, was the largest slave-owning family in Grenada. Over 1,000 enslaved Africans they held. They received significant compensation at emancipation. Laura mobilized her family. I met with her family in a town hall Zoom meeting. Over 50 of them I met with them on Zoom. Different generations, from the teenagers all the way to the elders. And I said to the Trevelyans, you guys were at the pinnacle of this slavery horror, and the time has come for your family to provide the leadership by example. And they came to Grenada, a dozen of them, and a meeting like this, apologized to the people of Grenada, admitted that their family did commit crimes against humanity, and they pledged and promised to begin a process of reparations for the people of Grenada. Laura reached into her account and took out £100,000 and said, we're going to put this here for a student fund to give young Grenadians a chance to go to any university they wish. But this is just the beginning. And the family has pledged an ongoing process. But importantly, Laura, who many of you will have seen on the BBC as a senior global producer, she has now resigned from the BBC World Service and has pledged her support for the rest of her life to the reparations movement. Laura, you can stand. Let us look at you. We are negotiating the strategy right now because I wish to see her as a global reparations advocate. Use her enormous global network to speak to the authenticity of this situation. What we have done, friends, what we have done together in building this movement, and it's not ad hoc, as I said. Hard work, all of you, the hard work, the solidarity, the commitment to each other. And then we said, this movement is not going to be complete until Africa is on board, front and center. This is our next movement, our next phase. And we targeted our African communities, our governments, our civil society, and we said, we are going to Africa to bring Africa on board with us in the diaspora. That didn't happen by itself. That was a lot of thinking, a lot of strategizing, a lot of scientific analysis, because we realized that in the diaspora, the slave-owning powers and nations, we can raise their consciousness, but they will not step forward until the weight of Africa is behind us. We needed the gravitas and the weight. And we told our African leaders, what you did to us in Durban in 2001 is a wound that will not heal. It's a wound that will heal only when you heal that wound. Because in 2001 in Durban, you turned against us. You voted with the European Union against us in the diaspora. They had 20 years to reflect upon that. They had 20 years to think about it. And they thought about it. Meanwhile, we were up and down Africa. I must have given 100 speeches in 100 universities across Africa. South Africa, Ghana, Senegal, Ethiopia. We were all over Africa, ensuring that our African leaders come to the table and join the forces with us so that we have a genuine global movement. One was there in Accra in August, where we signed off on the Accra Declaration, in which the president of Ghana said, from here on in, Africa and the diaspora will speak with one voice on this matter. One voice. When the European Union began to panic, the African Union came on board, and now we are building this global movement brick by brick, inch by inch, and this is where we are now. We now have a global, transatlantic, inter-American global movement. There are now reparations commissions everywhere. There are reparations commissions in England, in the European Union. We are building, wherever Black people were enslaved, there will be a reparations commission. And all of these commissions are interlinked and working together. This is where we have reached, brothers and sisters. We are at that moment on record. And I'm looking forward heartily to hearing what my fellow panelists are going to speak about this matter. In cricket language, we will say, you have a beautiful wicket on which to bat. So please come and bat. You can do better than that, Professor Henry Russell. We have a number of commissioners who will be a part of the reparations track, but for the purposes of this conversation, which we want to move along in the interest of time, we want to welcome to the stage, first of all, and I guess he's out there, he can enter on this side and take that first chair over there. You heard from him earlier. Ambassador David Commission, would you take that first seat there, sir? And why not have seated next to him none other than Robin Ruth Simmons. Now, Robin, this way, you can go ahead and you can say, okay, all right. And then, because when we did the first Reparations Symposium, bringing leaders to Evanston, Illinois, he was kind enough to come all the way from Guyana. Like Professor, this movement is kicked up. The parable of the dry bones, I want to get into that. He's looking up these dry bones, right? Breathing into it. Eric Phillips. See there. Amazing multitasking. But they describe James as working rather than the whatever, but the hardness of the system. I love it. And she too. Keisha Taifa. I see that. And next, why not Brother L, co-chair at COBRA, now the founder and CEO of Reparations United. And this brother, I mean, he's a serious scholar. Dr. Conrad Worrell, who was one of his mentors, is so proud of him. Because this brother, he be studying. Now, I have to look, you know, this little skin on the top and a little commercial, little cosmetic stuff. You know, he be bringing deep thought and proposition. Sometimes it's so dense, I have to say, well, hold on, Cam, let's unpack that a little bit. Please welcome Cam Howell to the stage. Cam Howell. Right. And let's now go to a person who deserves a medal of honor, because we have a California task force. But this
Viewers and listeners, this is where we are going to end this evening's stream. Of course, for those of you who are just joining us, we were covering as a live stream the State of the Black World Conference, which is a semi-annual gathering of people of African descent. This year's main event was, of course, a tribute to the late Prime Minister of Grenada, Maurice Bishop. And what we're going to do is to post the link to the YouTube live stream of this particular event, so that you can continue to follow the town hall meeting that continues to occur this evening here at the Baltimore Convention Center in the Baltimore, Maryland region. Of course, Prime Minister of Grenada, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, also paid tribute. He was actually the featured speaker at this evening's activity, but that speech was delivered virtually as he had to cancel his trip at the last minute. So he, in fact, not only paid tribute to Maurice Bishop, but he spoke about the role of the reparations movement in framing a post colonial Caribbean society. So, on behalf of myself and on behalf of the organizers of this activity who extended the invitation for us to be here, thank you for tuning in. I posted the link on the comment section, so you can continue to follow this activity via the Institute of the Black World's YouTube page. All right, I will see everyone on Sunday. Signing off. Take care. Good night. Bye bye.